This is Bloomberg Businessweek Daily, reporting from the magazine that helps global leaders stay ahead, with insight on the people, companies, and trends shaping today's complex economy, plus global business, finance, and tech news as it happens. Bloomberg Businessweek Daily with Carroll Massar and Tim Stenovec, live on Bloomberg Radio, television, YouTube, and Bloomberg Originals.
And a very good afternoon, everybody, across Bloomberg platforms. Carroll, Massar, Tim Stenovec, live here at Bloomberg headquarters in New York City. I got to tell you, it's been so busy that I still have my gym clothes on. I threw on a jacket.
That's the type of day it is.
It is just a lot coming at us. And I got to say, anything to do with the AI spend trend really fueling a rise in the semiconductor space. I should say, really kind of fueling a rise in a lot of names here, Tim.
Yeah, S&P 500 rising for a 7th straight day. We're going to have the details from Charlie Pellet in just a minute, but suffice it to say, another record day for the S&P 500. So this hour, Carroll, we are going all in on what is happening when it comes to the AI trade. AMD CEO Lisa Su on the company's big deal. Or is it a big deal?
Or is it? I want to, there's a lot of money.
Investors certainly think it's a big deal.
Sloshing around. Yeah, that's a good point. We're going to get into that in just a moment. Also, some big news earlier today. Another government in turmoil as France's prime minister quits. President Macron was supposed to be speaking around this time in France, but it's not going to happen. There's a little bit of a delay. 48 hours, clock is ticking. We'll get into what you need to know. French stocks, though, were under pressure overnight.
Also, from the Citadel Future of Global Markets Conference, we're going to hear from Jim Esposito, president of Citadel Securities, also a partner at Sequoia, Konstantine Buhler, joining us as well.
And then we're going to do a little bit of sports, because business is sports. It's a big thing, folks. Rick Welts, CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, on kicking off a new NBA season, I should say, but also just about all of the money that is percolating around media coverage and so on and so forth when it has to do anything with some of the big teams. So we're going to get into that. First up, though, let's get to that trade, that record on Wall Street. Let's head on over to Charlie Pellet.
Very much. Day 6 of the government shutdown. Stocks push higher. We've got the Dow negative, but the S&P, NASDAQ, they are both advancing. A rally in chip makers is sending stocks to records as AMD's deal with OpenAI adds fuel to the AI frenzy that has powered the bull market. We'll have a whole lot more on AMD coming up for you just shortly right here on Bloomberg Businessweek Daily. S&P right now up 30. We're looking at a record there, 67.46, up by about 0.5%. A retreat for the Dow, though, down 33, drop there of just under 0.1%. Verizon leading the Dow lower. Verizon shares, by the way, now down 5.2%. NASDAQ up 176. That is a gain of just about 0.8%. And our Mag 7 index pushing higher by 1%. 10-year yield at 4.15%, with a 2-year right now 3.59%. Spot gold up $72 the ounce. The precious metal up 1.9%. $39.59 on gold. West Texas Intermediate crude up 1.6%. $61.84 for a barrel of WTI. And Bitcoin also advancing to a record now at $125,000, trading higher by 2.1%. Fifth Third Bancorp has agreed to buy Comerica for about $10.9 billion in stock, the largest American bank deal this year, and a sign that the logjam blocking big mergers in the industry may have broken under the Trump administration's deregulation efforts. Shares of Fifth Third, they're down 1.1%. They are the acquirer. We've got Comerica, though, surging by 14.2%. Recapping, AMD up 26%, S&P up by 0.5%. I'm Charlie Pellet, and that is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
All right, Charlie, thank you so much. All right, folks, you might have noticed some news out of Europe overnight. French stocks falling by the most since late August after Sebastien Lecornu unexpectedly resigned as prime minister, sparking worries about further political turmoil in the country. And then French President Emmanuel Macron asked his outgoing prime minister to negotiate a way to stabilize the government in the next 48 hours. It's just another, segment of geopolitical uncertainty that we are seeing certainly around the globe, Tim.
Fortunately, we got Stephen Carroll tracking the ins and outs. He's at the Bloomberg News Bureau in Paris. He's the host of Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, and he joins us from Paris. Stephen, France's equity benchmark, it's trailed European and U.S. peers since President Macron called that snap election. It was a little over a year ago, let's say a year and a half ago, June of 2024. Worries about political turmoil taking hold again this August. Investors have had their concerns. Is this what they've been fearing?
The short answer is not yet, and believe it or not, even though what's into feels like the 6th season finale of France this year, we're still not at a point where this is a fiscal crisis. It's still the same kind of political stalemate, and actually the latest development that Emmanuel Macron is giving the same man, Sebastien Lecornu, another 48 hours to try and come up with a sufficient coalition to be able to pass a budget, because that's what this is all about, tells us that we're not at the end of this season just yet. So essentially we're into another round of negotiations led by the same man speaking to the same people, hoping for a different result. What happened this morning is that those talks had fallen apart and Sebastien Lecornu became the shortest-lived Prime Minister in modern French history, just 27 days on the job. And actually the ministers that were appointed last night became the shortest-serving ministers as well. Most of them were only in the job for just over 12 hours before they had resigned, effectively, because the government had fallen. So we're back into a sort of holding pattern for 48 hours. We know already that there are meetings planned for the Elysee Palace tomorrow morning with those parties who have been loosely dealing with Emmanuel Macron's party in France as well. The hope is that they will be able to do better this time round. There's been some caste changes in the cabinet that might help that process along. But where we'll end up by Wednesday evening is now the key question. Emmanuel Macron, and bear in mind we are deep in the annals of political spin here as well, has talked about taking responsibility if the parties can't agree by Wednesday evening. Now, what that means could be really anything that you can imagine. The options he has open to him is finding someone new for the job, so getting rid of Sebastien Lecornu for a second time, calling an election to the National Assembly, although polls indicate he probably wouldn't end up with the result that was that different, or even in extremis resigning himself, although that very much looks off the table for the moment.
Well, it makes you wonder if President Macron's request of his outgoing prime minister is kind of a little insanity, right? Asking him to kind of do the same thing over again and expecting different results. What's really, going on in France? Why is, what are the difficulties politically that this nation is trying to figure as it moves to its next chapter, if you will?
So look, since June of last year when Emmanuel Macron called snap elections to the National Parliament, we've ended up with a parliament essentially that has three main blocks. None of them can govern by themselves and they can't agree between each other to govern either. So what's been happening since then is that Emmanuel Macron's centrist group, along with the centre-right party, have been sort of getting some measures passed by getting other parties to abstain, particularly the centre-left Socialist Party. What the hope of this Prime Minister had been would be to bring on board the likes of that Socialist Party, perhaps convince them to abstain on key votes to allow them to get some sort of budget through. But actually the Socialists have been pretty intransigent in the past month, and that's really what's changed in the past month, is that they have insisted they want their budget plans, which involve austerity at a different pace to what's being proposed by the current government, but also things like a wealth tax proposed by the economist Gabriel Zucman. Essentially nobody in the centre or the centre-right wants those things. Nobody can agree. The question is, within 48 hours, can they come up with what the Elysee Palace is calling a platform of stability to try and keep the, essentially, country ticking over and some sort of budget agreed before they start hitting a whole bunch of constitutional and legal deadlines for getting that plan outlined.
Right. Sometimes a second chance. And as we all in journalism know, deadlines can make things happen. We all live it every day. Hey, Stephen, last question. And I think it was something we were kicking around here. You've got a president, Emmanuel Macron. You have right now an outgoing prime minister. I mean, who really has the power in France, and what do we need to understand here on the other side of the pond in terms of these two positions, and how significant is it when a prime minister leaves?
Look, the Prime Minister has historically in France been this pressure release valve that presidents have gotten rid of them when they've wanted to reset their agendas. So we're not used to them being long-standing public figures that would last a whole 5 years in the way of a presidential term. But what's been happening in the past 2 years is sort of the extreme opposite of that, where prime ministers can't seem to get anything done because of the fractured nature of the parliament. So the power still very much lies with Emmanuel Macron. He is the man that can make one of the three decisions that he has in front of him. Yeah. You can sort of imagine that he dissolved the parliament the last time. That didn't work so well, so he doesn't want to go down that route again. He's hoping he can find somebody who can do a deal in the meantime so that he doesn't have to think about the more extreme options like him resigning early. His term still runs till 2027, so he still has that hold on power, at least for now. But when you look at what's happening to French borrowing costs, you wonder as well how much influence the bond markets are going to be having on these decisions as well. As time gets tighter for a budget to be passed, we know investors are already pretty jittery. They got a shock today.
Right.
How long more will they be patient with France?
Certainly something you will be watching, we will be watching. Stephen Carroll, always good to check in with you. He is the host of Bloomberg Daybreak Europe, joining us from Paris. Now, political uncertainty, it's a theme, as you know, playing around the globe, changes all around the world. So too is the theme, though, a major theme that is this year, Tim, of the AI spend and the trade as well.
On that, semiconductor stocks soaring globally. In the U.S., the stock's up close to 4%, thanks largely to a surge in shares of AMD after it signed a deal with OpenAI that could generate tens of billions of dollars in revenue. Could being the operative word, some might say. AMD Chair, President and CEO Lisa Su took some time out earlier today to talk to Bloomberg Tech hosts Ed Ludlow and Caroline Hyde.
This deal is a win for AMD, it's a win for OpenAI, and it's a win for our shareholders. And that's kind of the way we put this together. I have full confidence in, OpenAI, Sam, Greg, Sarah. I mean, this is a massive opportunity for us. Right now, right here, it's about who has the most compute and how fast can we get it online. And we're committing to doing this together. And the fact is, as OpenAI buys chips, that's great for AMD. Our revenue goes up, our earnings go up. We expect that it will also be very, very accretive to our shareholders from day one.
Our AMD Chair, President and CEO Lisa Su, earlier with the tech duo of Ed Ludlow and Caroline Hyde. Ed, of course, co-host of Bloomberg Tech, joining us now from San Francisco, where he is at OpenAI's Developer Day. Hey, Ed. Feels like we keep getting these big announcements. We're all getting a bit wary of them, what feels like this circular finance that we've talked with you about among those involved in the AI spend and build out. I heard Lisa Su say a win for AMD, a win for OpenAI, feels like a win for everybody. Is it really? Do we know for certain?
Well, she also said that she has full confidence in OpenAI. And the reason she said that is I had made the point to her that OpenAI still has to come up with the money for this. The difference between the OpenAI and AMD deal compared with the OpenAI NVIDIA deal is the structure. So it's almost the reverse. AMD will sign over stock to OpenAI only when they've met specific milestones, both operational and financial. So in the first instance, OpenAI has to fund, finance, and build 1 gigawatt of capacity. If they do that, AMD will give OpenAI some stock, or rather, technically, OpenAI has the right to buy a tranche of shares at a penny a piece. But the burden is still on them. And so the point I was making with Lisa is, have you seen into their books? Where are they going to get the money from to fund this, to bring it online?
Ed, could this be weird on the circular financing thing that, NVIDIA could have this deal that could be worth up to $100 billion with OpenAI? NVIDIA's invested $5 billion, or will invest $5 billion in Intel. And now you have, does that mean that NVIDIA, if they have OpenAI equity, then they're kind of an owner, or could be an owner of AMD?
Exactly. Yeah, it's much more fair to say that the NVIDIA OpenAI circumstance is circular financing, because NVIDIA commits to making a $100 billion investment into OpenAI. We actually don't know if that's in the form of cash or if it would be like chips in lieu of cash, but they do take OpenAI equity. In this case, AMD passes its own shares to OpenAI, but not capital. And so if you're going to build 6 gigawatts of capacity over many years, that is like the peak energy demand of like a major US city. We're talking lots of money up front in capital expenditure, and OpenAI has got to do that. Now, we posed many questions to both Lisa Su and OpenAI President Greg Brockman, who was sat next to her. Will it be debt? Will you issue more equity? Will you do something else? And Greg Brockman said, well, look at all those mechanisms. And so there are many more questions still that we don't have answers to.
Well, that's, I guess, my thing is, like, why don't these companies just do deals? I'll buy you chips, I'll do my build, I'll do this thing the way we do it normally, rather than all of these big announcements with a lot of questions that feel like we don't really know that there's anything there.
The market is simply focused, irrespective of the mechanism for financing, on the revenue growth that comes out the other side, particularly like software names. And so that was the justification that Greg Brockman made. He said the revenue will come. As you know, we've been writing a lot about the debt markets underpinning this, and debt investors feel the same way. All I'd say is there is also a technology story. You know, if you're going to build a data center and one of you is providing the chips and the others is going to use the capacity for software, it does make sense to partner and work together to make the engineering make sense.
If you're watching on Bloomberg TV or on YouTube or Bloomberg Originals, you've got this great graphic up that kind of helps us keep up. This is by no means exhaustive, but shows where some of the money has gone in recent months when it comes to this space. Again, by no means exhaustive. It's kind of like, Carroll, we're like at a whiteboard and we're kind of connecting pieces, because to keep these things straight is pretty difficult.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing, Ed. We need to all be smart. We are smart, and we keep seeing these deals coming at us. We hear people saying, well, when like a Meta reports and some other, the big hyperscalers, we do see the impact of the AI spend, but I do wonder if it's going to carry through our economy like everyone expects.
Well, in Meta's case, for example, they have a core legacy business that is advertising. And in most of the most recent quarters, they've demonstrated significant top-line growth and to a certain extent bottom-line growth, which is them saying, we invested in AI, AI made our ads better and more valuable, we're making more money from it. With ChatGPT, it's a lot harder to see that, but that's why here at Developer Day, it's really important. So the piece of news that came out from the keynote was they now have 800 million weekly users, active users of ChatGPT. The data point that market participants keep hitting me over the head with is, how many of those free users are converted to being paid subscribers? Because unless you have that data, we can't know what the top line growth for OpenAI looks like. But look in the markets right now. I mean, you guys will have to tell me, I don't have a Bloomberg in front of me, but I saw a pool of about a dozen stocks that jumped in the last hour just because they got name checked by OpenAI here today. And it's by association, the idea that if using ChatGPT, you can access third-party apps or third-party company offerings, everyone's going to make money. The market has a pretty simple logic in that respect.
Yeah, for those who do have Bloombergs in front of them, just type in NI movers into the Bloomberg terminal. Cisco Systems shares up to session high during OpenAI event. Figma shares extend gain to 16% after being mentioned at OpenAI event. Salesforce shares also jump up 2.6% during the OpenAI event. HubSpot, Zillow, TripAdvisor, Carroll, all moving higher as a result of what was talked about at the OpenAI event.
And this goes back to Ed. You were trying to press Sue and in your conversation, and I just think about, like, what are the big questions that still remain for you? You're reporting on these ins and outs. You're there at this event. We think about OpenAI a lot. We talk about ChatGPT a lot. Who's to say that there isn't some other, chat that comes in and takes over? I don't know. There's just a lot going on. What are the big questions that remain in a day when we get this big announcement? What wasn't answered for you still?
Yeah, I think the financing, I think in any corner of the Bloomberg newsroom, you've got to understand the debt markets, because look at the role that debt played in previous financial crisis, the dot-com bubble, what happened with Silicon Valley Bank, what happened in Asia earlier in the 2000s. I wasn't around then, but debt is a big underpinning here, and I think the signal that Greg Brockman gave us was they'll look at all mechanisms, including debt, so that's one part of it. On the other hand, I'm a technology journalist, and technology matters. OpenAI is going to use AMD chips for inference. Inference is where you run the model, not training. You are actually running people's queries and workloads. And if you look at all the movers that Tim listed today, what OpenAI was basically saying is ChatGPT is becoming an operating system. You use it for a number of functions, but you can also integrate it with all the other software you're using. And actually, that's a pretty clear answer to some of the questions about will revenue be generated from this. People use all of these platforms for hours each day, and the market seems to buy that if they can build the capacity of AMD in the timeline that they've said they will, they can actually start doing things of use.
Isn't it wild, though? Ryan Vlastelica has this great story, and the headline on it is OpenAI is fast becoming a whale in the stock market that it has shunned. I mean, OpenAI is not a publicly traded company, and yet Tim put down a bunch of names that are moving as a result of this this deal. Last week, we saw OpenAI sending shares of e-commerce companies like Shopify, Etsy, soaring after unveiling an instant buy option in ChatGPT. I mean, it is remarkable. The narrative, the market moves that are revolving around OpenAI, which again makes me say, what are we missing?
One of the things that I do each day. Yeah, one of the things I do each day, and I know you guys do it as well, when I first log on to my Bloomberg, I do NI Globe Wrap, and I look at the markets wrap, because they always have a pretty good handle on the sentiment of the morning. And last Wednesday or Thursday, it was equity markets push higher on OpenAI enthusiasm. It was the confirmation of OpenAI's $500 billion valuation in the private markets that was driving sentiment in the public equity markets. And that was well sourced. It's based on lots of conversations with market participants. That is, again, a reflection of the names that Tim read out today. OpenAI, a private company, is driving all kinds of markets at the moment with what it is saying, and to an equal extent, the activity it is doing in both hardware and software.
Well, there's a lot of activity happening behind you, Ed, at the OpenAI Developer Day conference. In just about an hour, we're going to hear from you again. You're going to be speaking with OpenAI COO Brad Lightcap. You're going to have a conversation with him that I'm sure is going to touch on a lot of these themes. Before then, though, the reason all of these companies are moving, can you talk a little bit about this idea of OpenAI, or rather ChatGPT, becoming an operating system, and how these publicly traded third-party companies are starting to use the technology to make their software, to make whatever they're offering, the services, better?
Yeah, for those listening on radio and watching on TV that are familiar with software, what OpenAI announced was very simple: API access for several third parties to ChatGPT, and they demonstrated it on stage. So I use ChatGPT for hours each day, but the idea is you link it to, say, your Figma platform or your Spotify account even, and you can use some of the features of those platforms within ChatGPT. That was a sort of direct catalyst to those stocks moving. But what they also spoke about on stage, and Sam Altman did a pretty good job of kind of explaining it, is that ChatGPT is going to basically act much like the App Store does on OS, right, with Apple. You have a community of developers. Those are all the people that are here today, the thousands of them, that are building applications. And where will they publish those applications? Well, they'll be reviewed by OpenAI, and they will be integrated either as APIs or standalone applications within ChatGPT. That is how the economy around the Android Play Store, the Apple iOS Store works. You have people build software, and then you have a place, a library, a catalog, where all of those things list. In some cases, you charge an ad hoc subscription to use those applications. And that's kind of what OpenAI is saying here that ChatGPT can be. Very interesting, although it's also contingent on the developer community stepping up and doing it.
Who needs to be worried? Alphabet? Like, who needs to be worried as we watch this unfold and everything seemed to kind of revolve around ChatGPT, OpenAI, and as you said, like, if this is one of the new big search engines going forward, I mean, Alphabet with its own search engines and making its own pivot, do they need to be worried, though?
Yeah, I mean, you guys, I actually should have checked, and I just didn't, but I don't know what Apple, Microsoft, or Alphabet did during that keynote. I mean, did they go down or up?
Alphabet's right now up about 2%, so it's near its highs of the session. And if we
Microsoft's up 2.4%.
Yeah, so like,
at its high of the session.
All in, right?
I don't know the answer to that about whether they'd be worried. I mean, we've done a lot of reporting on OpenAI going its own way and having more independence from Microsoft. The original idea was that Microsoft would use OpenAI's underlying work in models to improve their own software capabilities. Of course, one of the recent developments is Microsoft is using Anthropic for its own in-house software applications and has looked at one of OpenAI's rivals. But you are right. It's about OpenAI wanting to do more across software. One of the other beneficiaries in the keynote was, I think, Salesforce. You can correct me, Tim, if I'm wrong. I saw Salesforce as one of the movers, ServiceNow as well. it's just another sales channel in some sense. You can access another person's software through ChatGPT, and the market, again, its logic is very simple, that it drives use, and that's good, when you have a partnership with OpenAI.
Salesforce shares up 3% right now, up as much as 4.2% during that keynote. Ed Ludlow, he's at OpenAI's Developer Day. We're going to be hearing from him in a little less than an hour. He's going to be sitting down with the COO of OpenAI, Brad Lightcap, just a little later, so stay tuned for that.
All right, everybody. It's the firm that executes about 35% of the U.S.-listed retail trading volume for equities. Today, the company's top execs sitting down with our own Bloomberg TV anchor and host of Leaders with Lacqua, Francine Lacqua. She is there at the Citadel Future of Global Markets Conference in downtown New York City. Francine, over to you. You've got a special guest.
We do have a special guest, Carroll, and thank you so much. It was a great conference so far. We still have a couple of hours of it. Jim Esposito, thank you for joining us. This is, of course, a great conference. You're president of Citadel Securities. The conference has been going for a bit of time, but actually you joined from Goldman Sachs a year ago. What's it like now being part of a non-bank liquidity provider?
Okay, thank you for being with us today, Francine, at our Future of Global Markets Conference. I would say my one-year anniversary at Citadel Securities is noteworthy because what we're doing, I think, is in stark contrast to what the big banks do. When you think about Citadel Securities, in many ways, I think we're doing for trading what Amazon did for e-commerce. And what I mean by that is we're meeting our clients through 3 distinct channels in terms of doing transactions with them. On exchange, market making. We represent about 1/3 of the volume on the New York Stock Exchange. We're obviously doing a lot in retail markets where we take flow off the books of Robinhood, Charles Schwab, Interactive Brokers. We're 35% of retail volumes in this country. And more importantly, with this conference, we're directly covering institutions, and we're trading their flow both via the electronic and voice channel. I'd point out the big banks are only represented in one of those 3 channels nowadays. So in many ways, when I talk about Amazon, we're creating a network liquidity effect that our clients are benefiting from.
Jim, when you look at asset classes or geographies, is there anything that you're not into that you want to get into, or where you want to expand?
Yeah, in equities, we have a very significant position. We account for close to 25% of daily U.S. equity volumes, so we are a big, important player in equity markets. On the other hand, in fixed income, we can definitely get a lot bigger. We're just scratching the surface right now in fixed income markets. We trade U.S. rates, U.S. investment grade credit. We're growing a European rate business. But in many ways, we're only scratching the surface in fixed income markets. That's definitely going to be a big part of our strategic build in years to come.
How much bigger? Do you have a target of how much market share you want, or how quickly you want to grow?
Not yet. I would say we're trying to apply our skills and experience that made us so successful in equity markets to the fixed income markets. And we're taking our time. It's a very balanced and measured build at this moment. So there's no definitive plan as to what product will be rolled out next. Will it be high yield bonds, emerging markets, mortgage-backed securities? I don't think we're that far along. We want to master the products that we're currently trading, and then you'll see us grow from there.
Because there's quite a lot also on tokenization, again, if you look at regulation, where do you see the best and biggest opportunity?
I think it's helpful. I think we're about to get a much more defined rule set around the trading of digital assets, and that will be important for the market at large. Definitely be important for Citadel Securities, so that would be a product expansion that you could expect to see us get more active in, assuming we get a defined rule set. At our conference today, we have the founders of Kalshi, who are big, making a market for event contracts. You can think of that as, making positions or trades in terms of the probability of a political outcome or an economic release. We're not yet involved in event contracts, but there's no reason why we couldn't consider that in the future.
Jim, when you look at AI and computing, how does it change building out of Citadel Securities, but also hiring?
Yeah. I'd say first with our clients, the topic top of mind right now is clearly how can we support our clients to incorporate AI to either make them more operationally efficient or to make them better investors. And so we're spending a lot of time with our clients around that topic. In fact, as you saw, a major theme really underpinning this conference today is AI. We brought a lot of the best from the West Coast here to New York City. We had Jensen, the CEO of NVIDIA, this morning, and I think that opened up the minds of our clients in a very profound way. And so AI is top of mind for our clients. It's top of mind for us. And I'm pleased to report we are making some progress around that front.
What are clients asking today, actually, of Citadel Securities when it comes to AI, or what are they asking you to try and understand where AI goes next?
Yeah, I think generally, we think a lot about our own content, what differentiates us from the big banks. And so we don't want to be a Me Too bank in terms of the content that we provide to our clients. So we're doing maybe what you would expect us to do. We have differentiated skills around quantitative finance, around leveraging technology. Citadel Securities has been in business for 23 years. We were built as a technology-driven first organization. That's core to who we are. That's what we're leading with in our client conversations. And so how do they get more efficient? How do they get smarter and become better investors from leveraging and harnessing the power of AI?
Jim, we also talked about liquidity a little bit at the conference. I certainly had a conversation with Mario Draghi when we touched on that. You've in the past talked about, for example, teaming up with some of the smaller banks, right, to help your clients with some of, the orders there. What conversations have you had recently that point into that direction?
Yeah, this is no longer a strategic idea. It's actually now playing out. So we are attempting to provide mid-tier banks liquidity from Citadel Securities so they can better service their clients. I think there are probably 100 banks around the globe that want to service their end user client in markets, jurisdictions, in places that we're never going to touch. What are we great at? We're great at making markets, providing liquidity. And so if you're some captive client sitting in Latin America, you might want to get covered by a bank where you have a relationship with. We're never going to meet or touch that client, but we can provide the mid-tier bank the liquidity to better service their client. And we're starting to set up a whole mid-tier liquidity ecosystem to service these mid-tier banks. It's still early days, but we've seen signs where this model can work. It serves the end user client well, and it's servicing and allowing those mid-tier banks to be much, much more competitive against larger players.
And how do you think about the markets in this kind of environment? So given the volatility that we've seen, will it stay like this, or does it die down from here until the end of the year and beyond?
Yeah, look, there's a lot of talk about, is the capital expenditure for AI running too high? People are starting to speculate, are we in some form of a bubble? I think a lot of the macro discussion in markets sort of correlates to what's going on and what we're talking about at this conference around AI. I think if we can have modest productivity gains in the real economy by better leveraging AI, market valuations look absolutely attractive. You don't need a big productivity boost in order to support these valuations. By the way, there's also a lot of talk about growing stocks of debt in developed countries. How do these countries service their debt? They can grow their way out of it with productivity gains. So I think that's the big bet. Don't think we're in a bubble right now. Reasonably confident we will get these productivity gains, but that's where the macro discussion really hinges right now.
Jim, thank you so much for your time today. That was Jim Esposito there, the president of Citadel Securities. With that, I'm going to send it back to you, and we'll have plenty more throughout the day here.
All right, looking forward to it. We will go back to Francine Lacqua there at the Citadel Future of Global Markets Conference, in fact, in just a moment. In the meantime, quick check on the trade on this Monday as we kick off a new trading week. And we've got stocks pretty much hovering near their best levels of the session, so up just about 0.5% on the S&P 500. We're looking at an S&P up for a 7th straight day, driven by gains in mega caps and also the semiconductor sector. I mean, Tim, we are seeing really some outperformance in semis today, with most names in the stocks higher in today's session.
Yeah, I'm looking at the bond market too, where we're seeing yields higher across the curve, especially at the long end, with a 30-year up about 5 basis points. The 10-year right now at 4.16, up 4 basis points today, Carol.
Yeah, and the S&P, just going back to it and what we are seeing in terms of the equity side of things, just fascinating. I mean, AMD is up about 26% in today's session. So that's your number one gainer in both the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100. I mentioned the stocks. We're looking at 24 of the 30 names actually gaining ground in the session. And I'm looking at the stocks right now up about 3.7% in today's trade, off its highs. But nonetheless, some real outperformance this year, folks. You're looking at a stocks that is up nearly 40%. Here in 2025. So easily outperformance. S&P right now up to date, year to date, up about 15%.
As you mentioned, though, not everything in the S&P 500 is higher, Carol. The second worst performer on a percentage basis today is Verizon. A surprise announcement coming from the board earlier today that Hans Vestberg will step aside as CEO. He's going to stay on for another year as an advisor. In his place, the former CEO of PayPal coming in, Dan Schulman. Verizon shares down about 4.7% right now. Vestberg, as I mentioned, will stay on to help ensure a smooth transition in leadership, including the integration of Frontier Communications. The company's been losing subscribers, though, as other companies have been gaining them.
Listen, I look at us, and we've bounced around from different cell carriers. I think we were with Verizon at one point, full transparency, but bouncing around in terms of better deals or different deals. So I think there's a lot of movement when it comes to subscribers and, you know, maybe more options that are out there. Having said that, we talked about this rally thanks to chip makers. So very much some bullish sentiment when you look at how the trade has kicked off on this Monday, certainly here in the United States, Tim.
Well, let's head back to the Citadel Future of Global Markets conference underway in downtown New York City. Let's get back to Francine Lacqua. She's with Konstantine Buhler, general partner at Sequoia Capital. Hey, Francine.
Hello, I'm so excited to speak to Konstantine, and of course it's all about AI. He also had a great conversation with Jensen Huang of NVIDIA. Konstantine, thank you for joining us. I know everyone's talking about AI. Everyone's talking about also this deal between OpenAI and AMD. Your first thoughts?
Well, it's an exciting new partnership. We were with Jensen Huang this morning, and the relationship between NVIDIA and OpenAI goes back a long way. In fact, we were talking about how their very first AI factory, the DGX-1, was delivered to OpenAI back in 2016 to Elon Musk, actually at the Sequoia offices. And so it's just a reminder that all of this AI revolution is powered by really impressive hardware.
You're very focused on agentic AI. Where are the biggest opportunities, and why agentic AI?
Of course. So agentic AI is AI that doesn't just make a decision, it actually takes an action on it. And we are now in the moment where it's really starting to make a difference in workflows. I'll give a couple examples. One is actually for AI security. We're investors in a company called Expo that started off trying to find vulnerabilities in software and now ranks #1 in the world on global vulnerability leaderboards for finding vulnerabilities and fixing them for the good guys. Now, another example.
How do you know it's the good guys?
Well, we only actually service companies that have shown that it is that we're finding vulnerabilities on their own platforms. So it's for companies that have been approved and gone through the vetting.
And the second, and you were saying the second way to do it?
So another example is our portfolio company, Harvey, which is actually helping lawyers to actually complete their work faster. They're now at over 700 customers in 58 countries. But just to make it very real, my sister is a general counsel at a tech company, and she texted me a couple weekends ago, and she said, Harvey just saved my Friday night. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, I got a contract for my CEO. Usually it would take 3.5 hours to turn it over. Used Harvey, got it done in 30 minutes. And so that's us actually feeling AI and agentic AI finishing workflows in the real world.
But Konstantine, I mean, things are getting competitive, right? So how do you back the right company?
So we always look at the team. And at the end of the day, especially for early stage investing, we're looking for the founders that are going to endure and persist through ups and downs. You know, we know that AI is going to have its moments of excitement, but also moments of difficulty, and we look at the long duration. And in the long duration, we think it's undervalued still.
What are the other impacts that actually this could have on the economy? But also, there's so much spend. How are you sure that whatever you spend on AI, you get the returns in a reasonable time frame?
Sure. So we're here at the Citadel Securities conference with a lot of leading investors, and they're all talking about what's the return on that AI. And that's what 2026 is going to be all about. How do we actually see that return? And there's a few engines that are going to power that. The first is new monetization strategies. To date, most of the monetization of AI has been subscription revenue. You pay for a subscription and you get a product. Well, there's a couple more ways that companies are now monetizing. One is through usage. So the more you use the product, the more you pay, kind of like a real service. The other is actually through e-commerce. So last week, OpenAI announced that you can actually complete entire purchases on ChatGPT. So you can actually do research for the product you want to buy and buy it through Shopify or Etsy completely on the AI platform. That's something we're excited about. We wrote a thesis that this is going to become an important way to do commerce, and we believe that will continue to be. And the other one is new modalities. So everybody has used AI for text-based modalities. You talk to the AI and it responds to you in text. We've seen voice hit the mainstream. Voice has gotten so good that with companies like Sierra, which is a portfolio company that does customer support, you can have entire conversations with the AI flawlessly, or companies like Listen Labs that does market research incredibly well with voice. And then in 2026, we'll see video start to really take center stage. We obviously have seen Sora and Nano Banana, and those perform incredibly well. It's just the beginning for them.
Talk to me a little bit about the partnership that you have with Citadel Securities. I mean, this was a large amount of money from Sequoia and Citadel. Is this a blueprint of more of these kind of agreements?
Of course. So we were the first outside investors in Citadel Securities in 2021. We're proud to have invested $1 billion in the business. And a lot of the reason we invested in the company was the technology platform that they operate on and have built. And this technology platform has changed an entire industry. So if you think back 30, 40 years, the way that securities were traded was really in-person services. Two people would find a price and then transact in person. And they, especially Ken, had a vision of the future in which you're going to actually be able to discover that price using algorithms, predictive algorithms, and then actually be able to complete that digitally. And we've actually seen that become the way. The vast majority of equities are now traded digitally, and it's just the beginning. So only 8% of fixed income is traded digitally. There's another 92% to go. We see big expanding markets. And frankly, it also reminds us of the AI revolution and the agentic revolution, where it starts off manual, and then you get AI to make a prediction, and then like an agent, you actually complete it digitally.
But Konstantine, I mean, this is basically an industry being disrupted, right? Is there still one industry that we haven't thought about that you're looking at that will be significantly disrupted?
There always is an industry for disruption, but also for innovation. We want to make people's lives better. I think an industry that could have a lot of innovation and would help everyone is healthcare. Why do I say that? Well, there's a lot of spend in healthcare. It's incredibly important, and we're not all getting the services that we could. So my wife is a surgeon in healthcare. She has, from her health system, hundreds of patients that could come through and get those procedures. She still spends a lot of time writing notes and actually doing tasks that an AI can help with. In fact, now an AI is helping. So her health system, she uses open evidence, which is now used by 40% of physicians. She uses a bridge, which does transcription, and that actually helps her complete that busy work faster so she can spend more time with patients. So I'm very hopeful that one of the areas that AI helps with is healthcare.
Konstantine, thank you so much for your time today. That's Konstantine Buhler there from Sequoia. With that, I'm going to send it back to you, and of course we'll have plenty more throughout the day, today and tomorrow, from the Citadel Securities Conference.
Thanks so much, Francine. I do want to remind everybody, 4:30 p.m. Wall Street time, Citadel founder Ken Griffin sitting down for an extended conversation with Francine. We are going to bring it to you live on Bloomberg Radio on Bloomberg Businessweek Daily.
All right, as you know, obviously talking a lot about finance, as we do here regularly at Bloomberg, which also means the intersection of finance, investors, and sport in a big way. Rick Welts has been in the job as Chief Executive Officer of the Dallas Mavericks for a little more than 9 months. He took over as CEO of the NBA franchise. That was on January 1st of this year, following St. Marshall's nearly 7-year tenure. His career spans nearly 50 years in sports and entertainment. He has held roles as President and COO of the Golden State Warriors, President of the NBA's Phoenix Suns, the WNBA's Phoenix Mercury, and the NBA's Senior Vice President, Chief Marketing Officer, and also President of NBA Properties. To say he has seen a lot is not even fair. Let's head to the Bloomberg News Bureau in Dallas. With us is Rick Welts, CEO of the Dallas Mavericks, and Bloomberg News Texas Bureau Chief Julie Fine, who watches and reports and talks about this space so much. Rick, it's great to have you there in Dallas with Julie. I just want to start with that intersection of business and sports, investors and sports. 20 minutes ago, we were talking with Jim Esposito, president of Citadel Securities. Every day, it seems, or every week, we have a story about Apollo, Ares, different investment firms, the money in sports. You've been in the world for a long time, seen the rise of money in sports and the rise of financial firms in sports. Is this a good thing in your view?
Well, it's not only a good thing, I think it's an essential thing. Really, when you look at the valuations of franchises today, there's really a smaller and smaller universe of individuals who would either choose to or have the ability to purchase a Major League sports franchise today. So private equity's involvement is going to be something that's going to be absolutely essential going forward.
You know, Rick, when you talk about the future of sports, I do want to get in with you the streaming rights. You know, Dallas Mavericks, they have Mavs Television, and you actually are one of the few that also have a local deal, so you can see all the games here as well. But what do you see as the future of how we watch sports?
Well, it's unfolding right now. The NBA's entering into a brand new set of broadcast agreements for this season. So we're adding Peacock and NBC. We're adding Amazon Prime. And we have to go where our viewers are watching us, right? And especially our younger viewers today who are just accustomed to using streaming as their primary platform in consuming sports.
You know, let's talk a little bit about your viewers and your fans. They had quite a shock last year with the trade of Luka Doncic. You start tonight, you kick off your preseason. Do you feel that you've really managed to bridge that gap with them?
Well, you know, this is my favorite time of year, right? Because there's optimism. As I checked the standings this morning, we're undefeated. We haven't played a game. And every team feels the same way, right? But we had, you know, that trade on February 1st. And then this is such a crazy industry, right? 100 days later, on May 12th, with a 1.8% chance of winning the NBA draft lottery, somehow we came away with the #1 pick, and with that, Cooper Flagg. And that's what's starting tonight, a new era of Dallas Mavericks basketball.
You know, when you talk about the finances of sports, last year you did lose some sponsors, and there were some season ticket holders that were, you know, very upset about this trade. But where did you land now?
You know, sports is such a wonderful thing because it can change on a dime, and it did on May 12th with the drafting of Cooper Flagg. You know, the most decorated 18-year-old player in the history of basketball who plays his first game for the Mavericks tonight. And really everything changes. The optimism going into this season changed the business environment completely. We're third in the league in new season ticket sales. We'll finish this year ahead in revenue and season ticket sales, which, you know, I wasn't quite sure was going to happen on February 1st.
So ahead of the year with season ticket sales now, but on the business question and on the sponsors returning to the organization, can you give us some numbers behind sponsorships or how Flagg has affected the way that companies are interested in partnering with the Mavs?
Well, your second point is really spot on because the interest around Cooper Flagg and his potential all-star career in the NBA. But here in Dallas, it's combined with the optimism and energy around building a new arena and entertainment district to replace American Airlines Center, where we played for the past 25 years. So it's a wonderful combination from a business standpoint because we have the optimism of the team, but also a really exciting prospect about what we're going to be building in Dallas, which will be the future of our franchise.
Well, that's where we want to go to in terms of what you are building in terms of a new arena. Mavs lease is up in 2031, Rick. You share an arena with the Dallas Stars, but you've made it clear that the next arena that you have will be a basketball venue. I think the last time that we all caught up with you at Bloomberg, you said you had narrowed it down to several sites. So what can you tell us? Or feel free to announce where you guys are going to do it. We would love to know.
I really, really wish I could do that. We're hoping by the end of the first quarter of 26 that we're going to have identified a site. Listen, our commitment, we've been very clear. We want to be in the city of Dallas, and the city has been a great partner to this point in helping us identify sites. Not easy to do because we're looking for a minimum of 50 acres to build the arena and an entertainment district. So not a lot of 50-acre parcels that you can even consider in Dallas. But we have narrowed it down, and we're doing our due diligence on those. Very complicated project. These are very complicated things to get done. But again, we're hoping by the end of the first quarter next year to be able to announce where we're going to be.
Of course, the team owners, the Adelson family, they've made no secret they would like to see casino gambling in Texas. You follow the Texas legislature. I follow the Texas legislature. That did not get anywhere this year. Does that affect really the plans and what's going to be next for the stadium?
No, as we look forward, we don't think the prospects for that happening in Texas anytime soon are very likely. So the project that we're going to build has no casino component to it. We're talking about hotels, we're talking about retail, we're talking about restaurants, we're talking about big gathering places and an arena. So there's no casino component.
Something you don't see that often is a team opening their preseason not in their arena. You will be playing tonight in Dickies in Fort Worth, a much smaller arena, and that's really where people will get their first vision of Cooper Flagg. You know, can you talk about that decision and what you're hoping comes out of the evening?
Yeah, well, it was really in COVID when the commitment was made to play this game. The fact that it's going to be Cooper's first game in a Mavericks uniform in our home market, and we think of Dallas-Fort Worth as our home market. I think Fort Worth looks at the Mavericks as their NBA team, so I think it's going to be a super exciting night. It's going to be the first time we'll get to see Cooper, and I think there's a big buzz about that.
I think there's people that are interested in seeing Cooper globally. Speaking of global sports, the World Cup will be holding 9 matches in Dallas. That's the most in any city in North America. You know, what does that do for this city in terms, this whole area, in terms of being branded really a sports town?
I don't think people yet realize the impact this is going to have. This is the whole world is going to be focused on this. And I'm a huge soccer fan, you know, maybe this far behind NBA basketball. I own an ownership interest in a couple soccer clubs. So I think what's going to unfold here is really going to put Dallas on the map as a soccer mecca.
Hey, I want to ask a little bit. Julie asked about gambling on site and the potential for that. Obviously, that's not going to happen anytime soon. What about those sports gaming and the way that gaming and the ability for people to actually wager on these games has attracted or increased viewership, has attracted or increased engagement? How do you measure that at the Mavs organization?
Well, I think we're all tracking it and watching this unfold in real time because, the argument, Adam Silver was really the first of the commissioners to come out in favor of it and really talking about the level of engagement that it does provide and how people want to consume our games now. So I think it's been nothing but positive at this point. Listen, the story hasn't been written yet on how this will completely play out. But I think it's been nothing but additive in terms of people's interest in watching games and staying and watching more than they have historically in the past.
You mentioned Adam Silver. CBS News reporting last week as the NBA continues to grow its presence overseas, Rick, Silver outlining a bold vision for the future that could see teams from other continents playing U.S.-based franchises in the regular season or postseason. What do you think of that?
I think it's the most exciting time in NBA history, and I think the prospect of that, for me, I was hired in 1982 by David Stern, who was commissioner for the NBA for 30 years. I was the 35th employee of the NBA league office, and he's not with us anymore, but this would really be the culmination of that dream, the path that we went on to really understand basketball is the only other sport played worldwide other than soccer. And the NBA is a very unique league where all the best basketball players in the world play in one league. The idea that we could have another league in Europe, what we're doing in Africa today with our league in Africa, I think it's really the most exciting time ever for the globalization of our sport.
Rick, seconds, are you having more fun today or back in 1969 when you began as a ball boy with the Supersonics?
I think I have the same level of excitement going into tonight's game as I probably did that first day I walked into a Seattle Supersonics locker room.
All right. Well, that's a good place to be. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your time always that you give to Bloomberg. That, of course, was Rick Welts, CEO of the Dallas Mavericks. And, of course, our thanks as well to Julie Fine. She is Texas Bureau Chief for Bloomberg News.
I'm Tim Stenovec along with Carroll Massar. Let's take a look at some stocks on the move today. We're joined by a Bloomberg News cross-asset reporter, Emily Graffeo. And I think, Emily, I know where you're going to start.
But maybe some people don't. Maybe some people are just waking up and they don't know the big stock mover of the day, which of course is Advanced Micro Devices, AMD. That's the ticker as well. The chip maker up 25% right now. It was up as much as 38%, adding over $68 billion in market cap. Of course, this is all coming after they announced a blockbuster deal with OpenAI, which is the parent company of ChatGPT. AMD is going to be building artificial intelligence infrastructure. This is a strategic partnership, which is going to kind of work out over multiple years. Bloomberg's Ian King writing today that the deal represents a high-stakes test for AMD. It could deliver tens of billions of dollars in new revenue for the chip maker. But there's also risks because it really ties AMD's prosperity to an AI market that some worry is in a bubble. We're not seeing any of that worry kind of play out in the stock market today, though. It's all green on the screen for AMD.
Everybody wants to jump on. If it is a bubble, that bubble, it seems like, in a big way. Really a lot of momentum driven out of that story and certainly that trade. Where do you want to go next?
Verizon is another mover. Ticker VZ, falling as much as 5.3%. It was the biggest intraday drop since April after they announced some management switch-ups here. So they named Dan Schulman as CEO, and he's going to be replacing Hans Vestberg, who had led the company since 2018. Schulman has actually been on the board. An interesting kind of circle here. He actually started his career working at AT&T. Now he'll be the CEO of Verizon. But it's really coming at a time when Verizon is losing its market share to other mobile carriers. They're still the largest mobile carrier in the U.S., but they have seen that market share slip. If you look at what the street had to say, KeyBank said that the move is actually a negative for Verizon because they find the timing and the lack of consideration of other candidates all to be interesting. So it's always unclear when you see the stock moving lower when there's a management shakeup. But of course, Vestberg is leaving the company at a time when its market shares.
And it was unexpected, right?
Unexpected surprise announcement today. Schulman's such an interesting choice. He was CEO and founder of Virgin Mobile, like more than 20 years ago. He spent some time at Sprint Nextel. I think he's probably best known for being at eBay and over at PayPal as well.
Right. He was the CEO of PayPal. I think I forgot to mention that earlier.
And Hans Vestberg at Verizon, he's been there since 2018, and it's been kind of a little tumultuous with the media entry that he had, like with the purchase of Yahoo and AOL, and investors didn't necessarily love what was going on there. But AT&T struggled during that time too.
Yeah, I mean, this is, it's again coming at a time for Verizon when maybe the current CEO, the shareholders didn't like it. At least if you look at Dan Schulman's performance as CEO of PayPal, he did manage to kind of boost profit there. So maybe we'll see the stock move higher tomorrow when this solidifies with shareholders. But at least right now, the surprise announcement not performing well for Verizon stock.
Definitely one of the laggards in today's session.
Yes.
Comerica, let's go there.
Okay, this is another big mover of the day, big deal news of the day. Actually, the largest banking merger that we've seen this year. Comerica, Fifth Third Bank agreed to buy Comerica for about $10.9 billion in stock. So we saw Comerica, ticker CMA, rising as much as 18%, now up 14%. Biggest intraday jump, though, since 2020 on this deal. Some analysts called the financial terms of the deal compelling. We did see Baird analysts saying the deal is a win-win for both banks, but Fifth Third stock not seeing that as big of a jump here as Comerica.
You know,
I
think it's down right now. Yeah.
Well, it's the acquirer, right? So we often see that play. But it's interesting when you said biggest bank deal this year, and I had to go back and be reminded of PNC Financial announcing it would take over First Bank.
Right.
You had Pinnacle Financial with Synovus Financial. I mean, there's been a fair amount of activity, certainly among the regional players.
Yeah, a lot of people heading into this, this presidential administration have expected that we would see more M&A under the Trump administration. We're certainly starting to see that pick up. And if it's not actual deals being done, it's these strategic partnerships, going back to AMD and OpenAI.
A lot of stuff. Frenemies.
Movers and shakers.
Or something.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know. We'll see. The regulatory environment has changed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I said, but I was saying earlier, why not just do business with them? Why do they need these partnerships? Why is that so important in these investments? And I don't know.
Matt Levine had a good column about maybe some of what they're up to. So I would recommend go read that.
Nice tease. Well done, well done. Bloomberg News cross-asset reporter Emily Graffeo. Hey, check out our Stock Movers podcast, 5-minute episodes of the biggest winners and losers in the stock market. You can find it on Apple, Spotify, or anywhere you download your podcasts.
Hey, we got a great program coming up on Bloomberg Businessweek Daily next. We're going all in on this AMD landmark OpenAI chip deal. We got a great roundtable coming up. That's next on Bloomberg Businessweek Daily.